Hello Internet, and welcome back to the Minecraft Time Machine.
For the second episode of Season 1, we're going to be progressing onto the sea builds. While still using the first version of the terrain generation, these versions behave a little differently. Be sure to check out Episode 1 if you haven't seen it already, and consider subscribing if you like the content and would like to see more. Old Alpha C0.0.11a. When loading into this version, the terrain looked much the same as before. However, in the top left, I noticed a small difference to previous versions. The game now included a version number, along with FPS and chunk updates. Also, I noticed the saplings had a new texture, and the block placing animation seemed to have changed as well. This was paired with a new mechanic to place and break blocks. Now, clicking right click would actually toggle between place and break mode. This was quite an interesting mechanic, and it was interesting to see the thought process that Notch would have had while in these early development stages, trying to scope out exactly how he wanted the game to control. However, it was weird to try and get used to. Putting myself into block breaking mode, I decided what I would build this time is a mineshaft. With a house constructed, it seemed fitting to start going subterranean, and while there aren't tools in the game that I can find yet, it would still be a fitting addition to my blossoming world. With no bedrock layer, I broke through the bottom of the world and began falling. Not yet knowing that I could use the R key to respawn at a random location, my strategy for getting back to the surface was restarting the game. Restarting the game is short for pressing the X button in the top right and waiting for the game to crash, because the game doesn't even have a pause menu yet. Back in the game, I headed over to my builds. While I had a spring in my step on the approach, I quickly realised something was off. Where was the mine? I didn't see any sign of it. I don't know if it was just a feature of the sea builds, or related to the fact that the game crashes every time I try and close it, but it didn't seem like the world progress had saved. Not knowing what to do, given that I would lose the progress, I built a random pattern in the floor while brainstorming my options. Taking a big risk, I decided it would be fun to grief everything I built so far. I really was banking on the world not saving. I wish fire had been added to this early version of the game. It'd be a lot more fun to burn this thing down. The calm and collected ascension to the rooftop really was quite ominous. And then, down comes the chimney. Like a crazed maniac, I was back into grief mode. This really was quite a lot of fun. In reverse order of being built, the garden was next. Followed by the dirt house itself. Nothing was safe from my wrath. Coming to the second Steve catcher, I noticed there was a Steve inside. I destroyed the upper levels, but left him stuck at the bottom. It felt more anarchic this way. Running through the garden, I took note of the sapling texture again. It's interesting how the previous model was actually closer to the modern version than this one. With most of my builds griefed, I towered up and looked across what I had done. It made for a brilliant view, although I missed the Minecraft sign in hindsight. Content with my work, I crashed the game and was ready to start with the next version. Old Alpha C0.0.13a_03. Number 1, we're surrounded by water. Number 2, a little bit of lag as I join in. Amazing, all of my stuff was actually here still. I never thought I'd say this, but thank God my world didn't save. Guess what? I didn't really know what to do again, so I decided to make my artwork deeper using all of the available blocks in the game. By running along the top and placing saplings on this dirt, I literally had all of the available blocks. Seriously, this is it. There are 4 blocks and saplings, and that's all that's in the game so far. Vive la résistance! I built another mine, despite knowing I'd lose it, and dug my way down to the bottom, as I had before, only this time I wouldn't fall out of the world. Though unknowingly, this would be because there's actually a bedrock layer now, not because I was more vigilant as I descended. Every well-decorated mine needs wooden support structures, and between these I could create my strip mines. Adding more decorative detail, I included some support beams, and broke it off at the end in an unfinished manner. I never did find any diamonds down there, nor anything else to be honest, except stone, so I headed back to the surface. Expecting my work to be done, I hit escape to close the game, but was surprised to see a pause menu. Crikey. It had a save level, and a load level option, as well as back to game, and generate new level. The top option was something I did not want to press, and unfortunately there was no exit game button either, which was a little strange, so I had to resort to the original method of pressing the X in the top right, and waiting for the game to crash. Old Alpha C0.0.13a. Having found the save option in the previous version, I tried to load this time, but it didn't really seem to do anything. Seeming to have no luck loading the save, I decided to head over to the edge of the map and see what was up with the water. I didn't expect much, physics clearly weren't going to be integrated yet, but I was still curious. Also, unrelated, the place indicator had changed to a block wireframe. This world gen has an invisible border, so I couldn't jump down, so I dug instead. I found that the water wasn't solid, it was just more of a 2D sheet, which isn't surprising. With that little experiment over and done with, it was time to staircase back up to the surface. I still wasn't aware of the ability to use the R key to just respawn anywhere randomly in the world. Okay, so having a look at the water was interesting, but it certainly wasn't enough to call it quits yet. I needed to build something, even if it wouldn't save, and I had just the project in mind. I started by towering up to the maximum build height. Now I needed to place some blocks sideways and create a platform, but without the sneak functionality that stops you walking off the edge, I fell off straight away. I opted for a spiral staircase instead of another pillar, as I know I would be falling off again at some point, and needed another way back up. With that, I went down one layer and placed the first dirt blocks. You'll see why I went down in a minute. The top dirt layer was going well, and I almost had everything built, but inevitably I fell off again. This is why I built the staircase. Back at the top, and with the top layer of dirt built, I started working on the main feature. You might be able to guess what I'm building at this point, albeit a little abstract with the limited resources available. And on the subject of limited resources, it's skyblock, if you hadn't guessed. To finish the build, I needed to make the sky island a few blocks deeper. With that final block, I was done, so now I needed to get rid of my tower and staircase. The problem with skyblock is that it's at max build height, and while I didn't want a tower directly underneath it, I still wanted to get a good view. I fell off a couple of times in the process, but I finally accomplished what I was trying to do. I towered up to max build height and made a jump for the island. It's a great view from up here, but it's a shame the game doesn't have the survival mechanics or the resources to place skyblock as it is today. Nonetheless, I was happy with what I had accomplished, and was ready for the next build. Little did I know, this would be the last I would see of this world. This is also the last we will be seeing of Season 1, as the next season will cover the classic era. Season 2 will only cover 2 builds. Old Alpha C0.30_01C completely changes the terrain generation and adds a whole bunch of content. And Old Alpha infdev, well, I'll let that speak for itself in the next season. Until then, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the future.